that needed to be focused on in deciding whether to let this guy out or keep him in, I think that ought to be looked into. Just because he has a term of office doesn't mean that he's got to sit there and render decision after decision affecting people's lives if the judge is not behaving competently.
Okay, we're going to continue with our panel and your telephone calls at 1-800-618-2900. And up next, we'll hear one stalking victim's story. We'll find out what she thinks of this tragic case. When we come back, are the courts biased against women? We'd like to know what you think and what should be done when judges make the wrong decision. We'll get into this more when we come back. Stay with us on News Talk Television. Welcome back to News Talk Television. I'm Lisa Evers. We're talking about gender bias in courts. Do the courts discriminate against women by failing to take cases of domestic abuse seriously enough? We'd like to know what you think. 1-800-618-2900. Joining us now is Joy Owens-Levy, who was stalked by her neighbor for almost 3 years. Joy says the experience was so terrifying that she's afraid in her own home. Joy, tell us a little bit about what happened.
Well, it's very devastating to know that someone is living over you who says they have a meat cleaver for you to kill you. We're still in litigation, so I can't say but so much about it, but it's an experience I wouldn't want anyone else to go through.
This is a neighbor, somebody who lives in the same apartment building?
Yes, in the same co-op. He lives on a higher floor. So he has access to my door at any time because he's already in the building.
Now, you're in litigation. You went to court. How did he first make a threat to you?
He put letters under every day
Under your door?
Door, yes. He wasn't threatening me at first. It was like he had this thing that we were going to marry, and he put diamond rings under, and then he put...
Not real diamond rings.
Pictures
of
for
diamond
me
rings.
to pick out, and he's been watching me for years. I've been in Vail 31 years, and he also said that he had a problem with impotency, but he would get implants, and we were going on cruises. It was like when I just ignored him, and I guess reality set in that, oh, well, she's not going to be with me. Then he said, okay, violation of trust. He wrote the letter, and he mailed it, and he said, it's time to get even.
Did he start showing up in front of your door? Because if they lived in the same building, he obviously
yes, he did.
had access to the hallways.
In the beginning, he did and asked if he could speak to me, which I thought, he's a neighbor, so I opened the door, and I called the police during that incident because he struck me, and they said he was harmless. So it
After he hit you?
Yes, and they said he wouldn't bother me anymore.
And they didn't arrest him or do anything about that?
No, not at that point. They said to me that I must not let him, don't open the door for him. But then when he got violent and said he had the meat cleaver, at that point they arrested him, fingerprinted him, and gave him a summons.
Do you think that they would have arrested him the first incident if it had happened out on the street? It was between two men, one guy hit another guy?
I think so, because right now I'm livid really at this point, because the judge that's handling my case want to dismiss it because he says that I have to remember every date that he's done something to me, or every date that he's put stuff under my door, which is almost on a daily basis. I don't remember the date from 1993.
So the burden is on you, Joy. We're going to continue with this. We need to take a break. We'll come back when it's got to be horrible to have to live with that kind of fear in your own home.
You have no idea, Lisa.
And we'll talk about that more when we come back. Are the courts biased against women? We'll find out what all of our guests have to say when we return. Stay with us. 1-800-618-2900. That's our phone number. Give us a call. Welcome back to News Talk Television. I'm Lisa Evers. Do you think that the courts are biased against women in cases of domestic violence or domestic abuse? Let us know how you feel. 1-800-618-2900. Joy, how did you feel when you heard the story about Galina Komar, the woman who was killed by her ex-boyfriend at her job site?
I was even more frightened, Lisa, because I can't sleep, I can't eat. You know, you just don't know when they're gonna. I just felt for her. I really did.
And for her mother, too, and for her little daughter.
Of course. It's tragic.
Okay, let's go to Len from Missouri. Len, thanks for calling News Talk Television. What's your question or comment?
Well, I used to be an abuser. I've been married 4 times. I abused all 4 wives. 1977 was when my abuse stopped with my wife. I'm still with one, by the way.
What stopped your abuse, Len?
I don't know. She came at me one day with a knife. I took the knife away from her and slapped her, and I said, if I got to beat you to live with you, I don't want to live with you. We broke up for 6 weeks, and we went back together, and there's never been any more abuse.
Since 1977?
Right.
Did you go to any kind of counseling?
Well, I've had a lot of therapy, but not for that. But
Do
I've been to
you
court.
think the fact that she was fighting back changed your mind?
No, she's Indian, and we'd get to drinking, and we'd be fighting. What definitely stopped all of it was we quit drinking. But I've been to court several times on abuse. Every time I went to court, I was let out immediately on an OR. None of my wives prosecuted. One time I was on parole.
You mean on your own recognizance without bail?
Right.
Okay.
One time I was on parole, and they turned me right back loose again. And it was an ongoing thing. And, you know, a woman, she can have the heck beat out of her, and the guy walks, but let the woman fight back, and she goes to jail. There's 13 women in the state of California that's doing time for murder that should have never even hit the courtroom because of the way they were beat. And I moved from California, so I know what was going on. One thing, though, I do want to add. When people keep throwing this O.J. thing, O.J. was found not guilty. And I think that's a very, very poor scenario to use when a man was found not guilty.
Okay, let me ask you this: when you during that period when you were abusing your wives, after you were let out of court, did you go back? What happened?
We never had. None of my wives left me over it. It was always their fault. They pushed me to where I got so mad I couldn't control it. And this was the way that it was always put down. Well, you know how I am when I get mad. You know how I am when I'm drinking. You know how I am when you challenge me. And it was always them that was wrong. It was never me. I was the supreme power in my house. My wife was nothing. When it comes to when the temper flare up. And any other time when my wife had more say-so than I did until she challenged me on something, and one time it was over a pink slip of a car. And I said, if you don't give it to me, I'm going to knock you down. She says, well, knock me down. So I did. But it was her fault because she told me that I couldn't do what I wanted to do.
Yeah, but she only made a verbal comment. You then you knocked her down. You assaulted her.
That's what I'm saying.
So how is she responsible for you assaulting her?
Any excuse I could find to
No,
do
I
it.
think what's
That's your
happening
point,
is very
okay.
interesting is that this is a man who is taking responsibility for the fact that in the past his attitude always was, you made me do it.
Right.
When in point of fact, he made himself do it. And a critical issue with respect to alcohol in all of these cases is to remember that alcohol and drugs do not cause anything.
Oh, no.
They are what are called disinhibitors. It's a situation where I really want to do something that I know I ought not to be doing, and therefore I can cover my action both in terms of myself and how the public will perceive me by getting drunk or doing drugs, and then I'm relieved of responsibility. And
I
think
also
that,
did it when I was sober, too, though.
And when you were sober, too. And,
I found any excuse to show how tough I was to a woman. It was just, by gum, I'm going to run this house. You're not going to challenge me. If you challenge me, you know you're going to make me mad. So it's your fault. It's not my fault.
And I think that's, some would say that's part of the pathology of that. Len, thank you very much for sharing your story and your experiences with us. Brian, when you hear something like this, here's
Thank
the guy.
you.
Thank you very much for being with us. Good luck with everything. He goes to court. The judge turns him out over and over and over again. It happens. He said 4 wives. It happened to several different women. This was not a case of just one time he loses his head and smacks her, and that was it. Are the courts treating these cases in the right way?
There's no question if the story that the man told was true, and I'll accept that it was true, then the judge did not behave correctly. But I would be willing to bet that same judge goes lightly on other criminal activity as well. The situation is that we have judges in the country that don't take criminal activity as seriously as they should.